welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. And it is a special day today because today is the 40th birthday of The Empire Strikes Back. So I am 7 years older than The Empire Strikes Back. You can all do the math, figure out how old I am. But as always, joining me is Fredo and Dave. Everybody say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
And hope everybody's had a good week. We're going to dispense with the pleasantries. We're going to dispense with the pleasantries and the trivia and stuff like that because we're going to do something special tonight since it is the 40th birthday of The Empire Strikes Back. We are going to do an annoying running commentary of The Empire Strikes Back. We're all going to watch it and then talk over it, which, just annoys the crap out of anybody when you're trying to watch a Star Wars movie. Right, guys?
Look, everybody loves people who talk in the movie theater, I think I remember it was Firefly that said that there's a special level of hell reserved for people who do that. So we're going to the special hell.
So we're gonna talk about just I don't know, things that we remember when we saw the movie. We might get off on some tangents, things like that, some trivia, whatever. But if you want to do this along with us, we're all using late 90s, early 2000 technology. We're using DVD players. I'm actually using my portable DVD player. I was going to stream it on Disney Plus. You can stream it on Disney Plus, but I didn't want to destroy the bandwidth and make this episode even more wonky. So, but we've all got our DVD players set to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and we'll start at the same time. So if you want to do this with us, you can cue things up and then rewind the podcast, and you'll figure it out. You're smart people. So, all right, guys. We'll on the count of three, we'll say McClunky and hit play. So 1, 2, 3. McClunky.
Clunky.
All right. So like I remember I was 7 years old when I saw this, and I do remember seeing it in West Lafayette, Indiana. And I remember the lobby had like a Hoth. Hey, whoever's got their volume up, you might turn it down so we don't get busted by copyright police. But I remember they had a whole Hoth scene in the lobby, and I was wondering, what that was all about. So,
yeah, actually, I was gonna say this is actually the first movie that I remember seeing ever. I saw it at age 5, which I was only 3 when this came out, but I didn't get to see it until a couple of years after it premiered in Nicaragua for a number of social, political, revolutionary-based reasons. Let's just leave it at that. I remember when the movie theaters say, okay, we're finally going to bring it out. Here comes, the next Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. And my parents had said, look, told me and my brother, you guys behave well, we'll take you to go see it with us. So all day long, I was at my aunt's, behaving well. And then my brother, last minute, decided to act, and they left him behind. And 5 years old, I remember going to the theater to go see this, and had no idea what I was walking into.
Hey, by the way, and sorry, before we get Dave's what he remembers, in the crawl it said Darth Vader is obsessed with finding young Skywalker. But now they've it seems like, fast forward to that scene where the Emperor and he are talking. Do you think Vader knew before the Emperor figures it out?
Very much so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's something that go back and quote unquote fixed in this latest version that's streaming on Disney Plus, or you can buy the last DVD when they made the correction. Just because, yeah, it's interesting. And now we'll come up to a moment where Vader says, when he says the rebels are there, that he says, and I'm sure Skywalker's there with them. So he already knows.
That's true. There you go. Okay. So all right. Well, we won't get too far ahead of our skis there. I just saw that in the crawl. I never really kind of thought about that. But Dave, what do you remember about seeing The Empire Strikes Back?
Oh, very little.
I was so young. I don't remember anything.
Well, I was 3. So at that point, it was kind of I don't even remember if I saw this one in the theater, to be honest. But what I do remember vividly were the toys. I got a Hoth battle set for Christmas. I'm not sure if it was the following Christmas or 2 Christmases later or whatever, but yeah, that made an impression. It came with some snow troopers and all that, and I ended up with a Wampa eventually too, and so for me, Empire Strikes Back was where we went into kind of toy overdrive. We didn't have very many toys before that point, but then they were everywhere, and we got a lot of them.
Yeah. You know, I said it before on this podcast that this kind of has the slowest beginning of all of them, and I guess I would think, as much as I think all of us like Empire seems to be at the top of most people's lists, I think it would not be the one that I would have people watch first if they've never seen any Star Wars, because it's just kind of slow moving. You have to, you know, every other Star Wars movie is like off to the races from the get-go, and this is Luke gets hit by a Wampa, but you know, other than that, we got a lot of exposition. We just got a lot of hanging around. So
I think part of it is, and it's interesting because understandably when it comes out in 1980, it's a continuation, and it's the first sequel to Star Wars. Thus, it's the first movie, and it's not a direct sequel. I mean, it's not a sequel in the way of, okay, we're just going to give you the same movie again. It does this thing that future movies do, which is expand. It expands the universe. You know, the sets get bigger, the creatures get bigger, the action sequences get bigger from everything that we saw in A New Hope. But yeah, this is a movie that expects that you have seen A New Hope before you walk in on the theater.
Yeah, and I like, by the way, we just saw Han coming in, and he's talking to Chewie on top of the Falcon. I like how in this movie they started giving Chewbacca more of a personality, and then it seems like in Jedi maybe they kind of lost that personality a little bit. But
yeah. By the way, we're about to come up to one of the goofiest lines ever said in a Star Wars movie. A death mark's not an easy thing to live with.
I like it. Okay.
It's just like, well, of course it isn't.
Of course not. Oh man, it's like a dad joke, right?
It is. It is.
That guy was like trying to be the dad. Oh, poor dude.
Yeah, look, they got all this ice.
Yeah, you know, I do like how they continued the, you know, Princess Leia, Han. So I mean, they were at each other's throat in A New Hope, and they're still agitated with each other. It's, as you know, I've said it before, it's African Queen, right? You know, it's Hepburn and Bogart, you know. So it's, but again, it's, you know, for an action movie, it's not really action filled to start off with.
No, we
some
saw
ice.
right, yeah, there you go.
Excuse me. Sorry, go ahead, Fredo.
No, I was gonna say no. Yeah, we've had one beat with any kind of tension, which is when Luke gets jumped by the Wampa, and then that's it. Everything's just been, okay, here's the characters you remember coming back along.
Which, by the way, the Wampa attack happened because Mark Hamill was in a car accident, and they had to explain the scarring that he had somehow. So they got him beat to hell by a Wampa. So,
well, which if I recall, I mean, I don't remember. I mean, was that big of a deal? I mean, I know that there's always been conspiracy theories about Mark trying to get out of his contract with Lucasfilm, or I guess 20th Century Fox, because he had something else he wanted to do, or he wanted to get more money. Because I think of the three, only Harrison was the only one who had signed a one-picture deal. He didn't sign anything else, and then when it was time to do the sequels, it's like, okay, you're gonna have to pay me more now because these are now the biggest movies of all time. So, but it's interesting because I never ever consider scars or anything like that.
It goes back to what you were saying, Aaron, about how this is very slow to start. It's actually interesting because this movie is an obvious attempt to up the ante upon Star Wars, and you can just see it through so many scenes. The cast is bigger. There's just a lot to point to that says, I mean, they go to freaking north. Like, it wasn't hard enough to shoot in the desert. Let's find something harder to do. Let's go to the freaking Arctic and shoot our movie there. I mean, it was just very obvious that they were trying to push boundaries and make it bigger and better than the previous movie. And I wrote an article about that on my blog, so I'll pimp that right now, and I may include that in our links this week.
By the way, I'm sorry, real quick, just because we see the Wampa crouched down and eating. Special edition, did we need to see that, or were you okay in the original? And by the way, before you answer that question, I do have to say something here real quick. A little bit of trivia. This shot coming up of Luke grabbing the lightsaber. Sorry to ruin the magic for everybody, but apparently the way they got that to happen was he threw the lightsaber into the snow, and then they just ran the reel backwards. So it's kind of like the Tusken Raider who's standing over Luke, and he's waving his gaffy stick a bunch of times. They just kept rolling the film back and forth. But anyway, getting back to it, did we need to see more Wampa, or were we okay? Did we understand? I guess I will say that I was okay with the original one. It was very much like Hitchcock, where you know something, the monster is there somewhere. I didn't need to be kept reminded of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was fine as it was, because the whole idea is, he's been attacked from the bones and the noises and the little flashes you see. You're okay with accepting that he's been captured by some sort of creature. You don't necessarily need to know what it looks like or that it's eating. It's interesting looking back at a book, because the Wampas were supposed to be more actively involved in the movie.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit here. Yep.
Right. So without getting too far ahead of us, but it's interesting that ultimately they went back and redid that shot when they did put all those other scenes in, because I would have been like, okay, you're giving us more, but you also, I guess the reason they figured they could get away with not doing more than they did is because it wasn't necessary, because it's only going to be for a moment.
By the way, Han Solo made the winter coat hoodie fashionable. Dave, I'm sorry I interrupted you about your blog.
Oh, but well, I answer your question first. I think it's fine because it's seamless. Looks like a lot of these scenes that they added are just, they almost look dated now. Some of the CGI and stuff just looks bad. This one holds up pretty well for me, so it works pretty well. It wasn't necessary, but I like it.
And this whole scene here with Luke stumbling through the snow was, the crew was in the hotel shooting out the door because there was a big snowstorm, and they just had Mark Hamill out there, and it's like, all right, just fall sometimes and just stumble around. So anyway, keep going.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, it's a great story. I love that one too.
I'm sorry. I'll just say here, they said they were filming in Norway and a fierce snowstorm hit the hotel. They said this would have normally halted filming, but Irvin Kershner thought these weather conditions were excellent opportunity to film the scene. Everybody was probably ticked off they didn't get the day off. And Luke wanders through the snow after escaping the Wampa. He did this by sending Mark Hamill out into the cold, and the cameraman stayed and filmed from inside the hotel's front hall. So
I'm pretty sure the crew was happy with it. Now, I was just gonna say right quick, I love those little shots of the Tauntaun with Han. It just reminds me of Harryhausen stuff. The little models just brought to life.
Did you ever think Tauntauns were lizards?
No.
I didn't either. But everybody keeps calling them snow lizards. I don't know. They just look like little furry dinosaur things. I guess they're snow lizards. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Dinosaurs are birds. Come on.
Yeah.
And by the way, I will say, Rian Johnson is obviously a Empire Strikes Back fan, because he's the only one of the sequel trilogy who knew how to write for C-3PO.
Mm-hmm.
Because they made C-3PO awesome in this movie. So,
It's interesting. I mean, they obviously recognize that time has passed because there was very little between Han and C-3PO. And here, this movie, we get a ton of them going at one another. By the way, was Alec Guinness actually out in the snow to film this, or can't imagine they did that?
I would, if he's a Force Ghost, I doubt it.
Oh well, but let me go back to my point, which was like this is a very obviously this movie was built to be bigger, right? And that was the whole point of it. And it's just ironic that it starts so small with these character moments, and there's no real action other than some of this stuff with Luke and the Wampa. By the way, this is one of my all-time favorite moments. With Han here rescuing him and slicing open the Tauntaun.
Which brought the most disturbing toy probably ever made, and that's the Tauntaun with the slit belly that you can put Luke Skywalker in and save him. But even more so, I remember just being like kind of astonished a little bit and like really amused by Han Solo with a lightsaber.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of jarring to see, but
He's
then,
like going, "What the hell is this thing?" You know.
but then, like he puts the perfect exclamation point on it with the crack at the end, the joke. Like he's still not some buttoned-up Jedi. He's still Han Solo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just thinking it kind of dawned on me as we were talking about the slow start, but outside of this opening of these opening scenes on Hoth, we don't get to see Han and Luke again for the rest of the movie, and that's an interesting choice that they made. That because the whole core of A New Hope was Han and Luke and Leia,
and everybody got mad in The Last Jedi. I'm gonna be defending The Last Jedi here, Dave. Everybody got mad in The Last Jedi because all the heroes were split up, and it's like that's what happened in Empire.
Right?
Yep.
They consciously made the choice to send Luke away to split them up, and they will not see them again together till, what is it, 35 minutes in on Return of the Jedi?
It's a smart storytelling technique because they did the same thing in Attack of the Clones, which is like your second act, essentially. We're going to put these people in mortal danger and we're going to put them through the ringer. And the best way to do that is to split them up.
Right.
Like Aaron, you're watching the Avengers movies now, and you talked about how, oh man, why are they all so mad at each other? It's like, well, that's the only way you can create actual tension and drama that they may not win. Because, like, okay, well, if they're together, they're unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, they did say, one of the biggest people couldn't believe that they were going to film in snow because they said that is just impossible. You can never get the lighting right and everything. But I think what ends up being a whole lot of this is a bunch of matte paintings by ILM and Ralph McQuarrie. But
I was just thinking, as we're seeing Hobby coming along to rescue Han and Luke, I was just
that's Zev. But anyway, go ahead.
No, but I was just thinking back to Rebels, the episode where he and Wedge defect.
Oh, but it's not Hobby. Sorry to get nerdy on you.
It isn't?
No, it's
they're called Hobby.
It's Zev. Hobby is later. Hobby is he's another pilot.
I thought that was the name they gave him in Rebels.
Sorry, I didn't mean to push you down here.
No. That's quite all right. That's quite all right.
We've got to talk about the elephant in the room here coming up, though. If they knew that Han and Leia were brother and sister, I can handle a little peck before they swing across the chasm. But the fierce makeout session that's coming up here. But however, I like the tension between Han and Leia here is awesome. Laugh it up, fuzzball is one of the best lines. But to get some tongue action with your sister, I don't know.
Who's scruffy looking? Now, I always find it funny because it's clear the intent is that Han is the only person who can kind of get underneath Leia's armor, and likewise Leia's the only one get underneath Han's armor, which is kind of an interesting dynamic that the two of them have. and Luke's just kind of stuck in the middle. Along with
But that
everybody else.
reaction of C-3PO was awesome there.
Yeah, and Luke's like, oh well, I got to make out with my sister, even though I don't know that yet.
But you know who probably does know who's in the room is R2-D2.
Yes, and he never says anything.
It hadn't really occurred to me that RT's like sitting right there and he knows.
Should I say something? He's probably thinking, should I say something? Should I say
No, he's
something?
just he's drinking some whiskey, going, "You guys go ahead."
That sounds like it would be a
awesome.
good robot chicken.
Mhm.
Oh, but I mean, like, God, you know, right? It's just you can hindsight's 2020, but you just can't have done that. And you know what's hilarious to me? Out of all of the changes that he has made to these movies, he has never taken that kiss out.
Yeah, it's surprising because
It would destroy that scene, though. It would destroy that scene. Really, it would if you took it out, then it would make it really awkward. It wouldn't, it's understandable. The problem is that they're brother and sister. Now, yeah, they don't know it, but still. Snow-covered Chewie is still the cutest Chewie.
You know what would have been a better payoff would have been her kissing the Wookiee, given her line from earlier on in the movie.
I won't insert your bestiality joke here.
Interspecies erotica.
That's right. All right, so now we get the first. None of us are listening to the sound, but you get the first hit of the Imperial March, which was just a great ad. It's Darth Vader's theme, but they use it loosely as the Imperial's March. But
and the debut of the Superstar Destroyer. I mean, this is the moment where the movie begins to say, "I'm going to be bigger and badder than the first movie."
Yeah. The size of the Star Destroyer at the opening of the first one blew your mind. Yeah, watch this.
And then, like you said, with the Imperial March, the debut of that, just mind-blowing music. I mean, it really does kind of serve his character. They make him like bigger than life. I mean, he already was, but Vader is so on point in this movie. To the point, and it's kind of a misdirect. I'm sure they were probably trying to do that.
And Kirshner did such a good job of directing all the extras, all those pilots and everything down in the trenches there, to look like, okay, Vader's walking by. Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap! So there's all those little things in the background in this scene that's really good. And I like the Ozzel's tick that Piet showed him up. It's
which I never understood. Why would he be mad that the other one found the rebels?
It just made him look bad.
Oh well, that's because he started arguing. He's like arguing against the evidence, even without even discussing. Hey, okay, maybe we'll send somebody out to check it out, and we'll go from there. I don't know. It all seems weird. Like, but then again, that's part of the bureaucracy of the Empire. It's a lot of middle management. They exist to just be around. So anyway.
So what? We're almost a half hour in. How far in are we right now?
Hold on, I'll tell you. We are about 22 minutes in.
22 minutes in, and we're still the biggest action we've had is blowing up probe droid and the Wampa. I'm just saying, it's not a big criticism. I'm just saying, folks, if you're going to want to introduce somebody to your favorite movie genre, or movie franchise, don't start with The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, because people are going to be you're almost a half hour in, not a lot's happened. If you've seen the first one, then you're in like Flynn. You're good. But if you've never seen any of them, yeah, it's tough.
Just imagine. I mean, if this had been released last December or 2 years ago, people would not have been like, "Wait, why is this so slow?"
But it's like books that I've read where I've gotten 3 or 4 chapters in. I'm like, if this doesn't start going someplace, I'm putting this thing up.
You said that. It reminds me of the Fellowship of the Ring, which starts that way. It starts slow. It starts with a with a birthday party, and then it's like, you got to get past the first 150 pages before any of the action actually starts.
And here's another Indiana Jones actor. We have
Game of Thrones.
General Veers. Yeah, he's Donovan in The Last Crusade. And I always liked Vader in his chamber here. I don't know why. It seems, I don't know, Vader sitting. I don't know. It's kind of just
meditating.
And he's in a Zoom meeting now, and
which we can all relate to.
Force choke from home. That's the new.
He is keeping proper social distancing here as he force chokes Admiral also.
This was
an idiot.
I love the technician behind him going like, he stares into the camera and goes, "Nope, I'm not involved in this."
Yep, I didn't see anything. But the thing is that we saw Vader choke somebody in the first movie, but this one was like, we didn't see him kill somebody with his, you know what I mean?
He didn't do the pinch.
So, this is the worst line ever. 2 fighters against a Star Destroyer. It's like Hick from Nebraska there. That's just bad acting. Sorry.
But you know what I love about this scene is that it reinforces the idea of what they do best. Like Han is thinking on his feet. Leia is the commanding officer. She's the leader. Which, when you go forward to think about the sequel trilogy, it makes perfect sense that she would be running the Resistance. She's already done it once.
By the way, I got to give a hat tip to Family Guy when they did this whole spoof on it, and Leia's speech to them was, "All right, we have literally infinite paths that we can take to leave this planet, but we're going to fly directly towards the Star Destroyers." It's like,
yeah. Well, the doofus pilot, voicing his objections is a sort of a precursor to Poe leading his little revolt in Last Jedi. It's just, it feels very realistic that a hotshot pilot would be kind of like, "Oh, what do you know, lady?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also understand. I mean, it's like they know that they don't have the upper hand in any sort of way at all, and they're like, seriously, we're, again, like I just said, we're flying towards the Star Destroyer. So, and then of course you got to know that Dak's going to die here.
Or Dak Prescott.
By the way, did you see that Dak Prescott turned down a 5-year contract with the Cowboys today because he wants $45 million in his last year? That means somebody don't want to be in Dallas anymore.
Nope. And we may be dating ourselves there here, but yeah, no, it's interesting reading that because I'm like, okay, well, who else are they gonna get? Somebody's gonna get that money. So anyway.
By the way, so during this whole thing, the Battle of Hoth, the Echo-based troopers were actually Norwegian mountain rescue skiers. And in exchange for participation in this movie, Lucasfilm made a donation to the Norwegian Red Cross. This comes from IMDb.
Nice.
But, I'm looking at this, a lot of obviously models and stop motion with the AT-ATs. I mean, the special effects really do hold up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in this movie, they're better than the previous film.
You don't have like just floating TIE fighters going about 10 miles an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's a sense of speed that wasn't present in the first movie.
Well, what's interesting about that is that, and I'd have to go back and look, but the way it is, when I was writing Marching Band Drill, the pictures on the field, the way that you make it look like your band is moving faster is by having contrary motion. Mm-hmm. So you have like one line moving to the left while you have another line moving to the right, and so you get this sense of speed and get this sense of velocity. And so if you see, the snow speeders are never really flying parallel to the AT-ATs. They're kind of whizzing underneath,
they're coming against them,
or going against them while they're coming at them. So it is building that speed. Whereas I think in A New Hope, like I said, you had the Falcon just sitting there and TIE fighters just sitting there. So, and poor Dak. All right, Dak's dead.
So
Hostels on the Hill has ruined me for this scene. Ever. All I can think about is "You are like cinnamon."
And let's just talk though. Whoever designed the AT-ATs were, and by the way, it's AT-ATs, not AT-ATs. So don't come at me. Don't even try to come at me on Twitter. It's AT-ATs. But anyway, they don't design things very well, do they?
It's the benefit. You always got to remember, it's the Empire, so they have infinite resources that they can get from anywhere. So therefore, it's just a question of who is made happy by building this program. So whoever, somebody paid off the right people to get his walking tanks as the foundation of the Empire's military.
And I get it. I read someplace that it was like it's a fear mechanism because it makes it look like a big beast, but
and
whatever.
it rumbles as it gets closer, so that you feel it coming to you, even though you can trip it up with cable wire and boom, there it goes down.
And boom, yeah, that goes. Yeah, I'm about a second or two behind you guys.
Yeah.
My pause button broke, but anyway, and kerblooey. At the Battle of Hoth, I think this is a great battle sequence that I don't think the franchise has matched. I mean, the space battle in Jedi is cool, and the space battle in Revenge of the Sith is cool, but I don't know. This has a real world, war element. I don't know. I don't think they've matched it. And by the way, through this whole thing, there are supposed to be Wampas, that invaded the base, and they've captured and locked in a room.
Mm-hmm. That was the scene that they cut out, and then later on, as they're escaping, 3PO removes the warning sign.
Yeah.
Although I was gonna say, so wait, this battle started at about 30 minutes in, and actually no, it's because we're only past the 30-minute mark right now.
It was about 22, 23 minutes when we talked last.
So we've only had about 7 minutes of our first battle sequence. So it's not really as long as the Battle of Yavin or Endor or any of the other battles that we'll see later. But it feels that way. It feels like you're spending a good amount of time here, which is, I guess, part of the reason why it's so memorable. I guess that was one of the if I'm going to give any criticisms to episode 3 with
there goes Zev.
Yeah, it's Zev. Now, one of the criticisms I gave episode 3 is they maybe have stuffed it with too much good stuff. See, because you had battles at the beginning, and then you had duels, and you had a number of 2 battles, 3 duels. It's a lot. Whereas here, you get the sense of, okay, this battle's important. It's the only battle we're going to get to see.
Well, and again, so I get the tension that they're building, by going, he could get stomped on. That's a real life. It's like, I don't know. It just adds so much.
And also like the idea that as the walkers are getting closer, again, that fearsome element that they bring is they're bringing down the base around them.
I don't know where I would rank it in the pantheon of battles now that we've had, X number of movies. Rogue One is delightful in the air and on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And, Jedi obviously is really good. It's funny, that's the place where the sequel trilogy sort of dropped the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I like this stuff a lot at the end of Attack of the Clones. I wish the beginning of Revenge of the Sith had been toned down a little bit because it just ended up being kind of hard to follow. But yeah, I mean, like this is the action is very easy to follow. You see the tension and understand the tension. The objectives are very clear. It's a very, very effective sequence, and it will always be one of my favorites.
And I think, yeah, same here. And I think it does that very simple but very important thing of making sure that the audience is aware of the stakes at all times. So, like, for example, what is the Empire after? Well, they want to destroy the power generators. What is the rebels' purpose? They want to buy enough time to get themselves off the planet and away from the Empire. So those are the things that they're playing towards as we are about to come up to the Empire achieving its primary goal here, or second. It's gonna become, it's an easy way for us to know, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is what they're wanting to do.
Oh, there's the Wampa room right there.
Yep.
Yep.
There it is.
Yeah, and by the way, as we'll get here in a second, first of all, I have to say, the snowtroopers I thought were so cool. I loved the it looked like a cape, but it's just the crap. What do we call that? I even have one, for crying out loud. But anyway, I just like the look of the snowtroopers. But they said in an early outtake, when Darth Vader entered Hoth base, he tripped over a cable and fell down face first. I would love to see that. And I love this whole interaction. They're still, Irvin Kershner said he needed to have humor without gags.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole thing with 3PO, where they're just almost leaving him behind and doors keep closing on him, that's enough to keep a little lightheartedness to otherwise an awful situation.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think too, like little kids are going to be worried about that. Like, I remember that was a thing that a lot of younger folks have said about Phantom Menace, where Jar Jar gets his hand stuck in the pod, and then he can't get it out, and they're firing the thing up. Kids were like legitimately concerned about Jar Jar in that moment. And this is kind of doing a really similar thing with C-3PO here. You're like, are they gonna leave him behind?
Right.
It was a duster, by the way, the duster that we wear because I have snowtrooper armor. But anyway, that's what it's called.
Yeah, but I was gonna say it actually, Aaron. It's going back to the point I was making earlier about building up. It's you get to see a whole new design of Stormtrooper, specifically designed for the snow. And in Jedi, we would see the Scout Troopers,
which
I
would argue, as we start adding movies, it's like now there becomes this expectation we can't have the same stormtroopers every time. We got to have a little different stormtrooper. And my point, like Rogue One, it kind of, pardon me, bothered me that it's like we got to have something different. So they make these shore troopers. Okay, I get it, but why? You know what I mean? I would not have been upset that we didn't get a new stormtrooper, or we have to have a different TIE fighter that we're never going to see anywhere else ever again. Now, is it feasible that the Empire had different troopers and everything? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it seems like it's like, all right, we've got to have a new model of something. Otherwise, people aren't going to buy it.
Right. I
think you said buy it, literally buying it, merchandising and toys and
touche.
That's where a lot of that comes in. And that was a really critical period for George too, because like this was when he was trying to go it alone. This is the first time, because he went through the studio system on the first film, and then he tried to finance this without the studio interference, and he was in a very vulnerable position.
And remind me, Aaron, if I'm wrong, you might know this. Didn't Lucasfilm move offices right in the middle of all the pre-production and all the elements that, the starting of the work on Empire?
I can't say for sure. You might be right.
I want to say I actually read from a Lucasfilms book when they opened up their vault and were showing a lot of the old stuff in there. It said, because they actually remember one of the concept artists actually drew this funny thing of all their staff along with all their props and toys and 3PO and R2, and they were just packed up in the back of a van, and they're just moving down the street.
Okay, I've been saying kind things about The Last Jedi, and I do like The Last Jedi, but I will say here we basically have another slow speed chase you know what? Yeah, we got Star Destroyers chasing the Millennium Falcon.
Hmm.
You know, but this has more urgency and intensity than what we had in the Last Jedi. And I wish I wouldn't have had so much of a problem with that whole slow speed chase, except for it was literally a slow, just hobble through space. This, I mean, again, you got TIE fighters zooming all around, and the Falcon is maneuvering and blah blah blah, and it's a roller coaster ride, whereas the other one is watching the steamroller come at you.
Like
Yeah.
a scene in Austin Powers,
Right.
where the guy's like, "No," and the thing is like a room away from him and just
Mhm.
moving at him.
You know, and then they put him into an asteroid field, you know, and it's like another element to make you go, oh my gosh, it's like, oh no, now I got to go upside down on this roller coaster.
They're throwing obstacles at them at all times. It's never static, which I think that is a problem for the Last Jedi. You know, they know that the threat is they're gonna run out of fuel, and the First Order's after them. But once the First Order decides, okay, just hang back, and the moment they run out of fuel, we'll move in and kill them all.
But
It
even the
removes
Blues
a lot of
Brothers,
tension.
even the Blues Brothers knew they only had what, a half a pack of cigarettes and a tank of gas. I mean, but they still made it a little bit more interesting. So I don't want to rail on the Last Jedi, but I'm just saying that you could have done some things to make it a little bit more, urgent. We
Well, and
missed.
it's a credit to this movie. I mean,
I would-
honestly, this is a masterpiece.
We just
for a
passed
reason.
one of my favorite things, and that's C-3PO hugging Chewbacca when they realize they're going to be going closer to an asteroid. That's just awesome. Sorry, but yeah, you're right. It is a credit to this movie.
But that's just it.
I remember a Burger King commercial that had this scene right here where the Falcon flies through the skinny, trench there. But anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead, Fredo.
1980. You mean that commercial in 1980?
Yeah,
I love the shrug. By the way, you're gonna come up. The shrug that Leia gives, like, "Excuse me, ma'am, where are we going?" She's like, "I don't know." What's interesting is, okay, so the Empire's still looking out for them. They're gonna go into the cave.
and the Falcon
The
has
asteroid.
headlights.
Yeah, of course. Hey, look, it's a Corvette. It's a hot rod. You gotta have headlights. But it's that idea of, okay, we're gonna slow down things for a moment, but the tension hasn't been released because they're still being chased.
All right, as we coming on here to Dagobah, have both of you read A Certain Point of View, that series of short stories?
No, I want to though, based
All
on
right.
your recommendation.
You need to, because the story with Yoda, here's the deal. I'm sorry, I'm going to ruin a little bit of it, but Yoda is hanging out on Dagobah, and Ben comes to him, Obi-Wan comes to him and says, hey, I'm going to need you to train Luke. And Yoda's like, I don't want to train that one. I wanted to train Leia. I've been watching her. She's serious. She's, she knows, she's just going to be a better Jedi. Basically, he wanted to train Leia. Luke is reckless. Luke is everything that Yoda is saying here. So it totally turns on. You think when you see this for the first time that Yoda is just testing Luke and kind of playing with him. But this story adds, Yoda doesn't want anything to do with Luke. And it also makes it, it kind of turns it on its head. Even if let's take away the A Certain Point of View thing. Yoda has this plan at the end of Revenge of the Sith, that we're going to separate the twins, and they make it seem like, Obi-Wan's going to go look over Luke, but we'll send Leia off with, with the senator, But Yoda, it's really interesting that Yoda didn't want anything to do with Luke, and he wanted to train Leia, and that makes me see this whole opening on Dagobah even more. I think it's just even more powerful.
But it's interesting to think about it, because you're right. I mean, when you consider the two options, Luke and Leia, Leia is not only the serious one, Leia is the one that's already shown a commitment to being selfless, a commitment to helping others, a commitment to a higher calling, and that a lot of that comes from her upbringing with Bail in Alderaan. So whereas Luke had been living a very insular life with Owen and Beru on Tatooine, the fact that he had a normal childhood and whatever, but it's also it's a different dynamic. He is much more Anakin than Leia ever is.
Yeah, here's the other thing too, and then I've been started stepping on things. People had a problem with the way, and I understand that we have our mental model of what Luke Skywalker is. We were talking about that last week, but we have that mental model from the Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. Let's remember the Luke Skywalker that was in Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope, and it was whiny, self-serving, and it was kind of petulant. It was, he's not a Boy Scout. He wants to do the right thing, but he's very flawed. So why is it, out of the realm of possibilities that this Jedi would then, we all have our weaknesses. We all have our sins that, we all have our demons that at our lowest moments, and he saw his own nephew turn on him and turn to the dark side. It's like, I was a teacher for 19 years, and you have that one student who fails, and you go, I'm the worst teacher ever, even though you've taught thousands of other kids. I don't know, I'll let you guys talk about that, or whatever you want to talk about. That's just my. Oh, and here we see Vader's head. So.
Yep. Yeah. No, I was gonna say no. That's the one thing I always maintain is once you establish that the Force Awakens, once you establish the Force Awakens, where it starts, where it begins, the dynamics in play, the only way it could kind of go is the way it went in The Last Jedi. By which I mean, once you establish that this is Han and Leia's kid who falls to the dark side, destroys the Jedi Academy, nearly murders his uncle, and joins the First Order, and they go on a murdering and conquering spree across the galaxy. Okay, well, what would that do to somebody? And the only ways it could go is the way it went for Luke. He would blame himself. He would take on all that responsibility on his shoulders, and he'd run to the furthest hill he could possibly run to. And we're about to get some more romance in about a moment.
Well, there's a reason. That'd be an argument against Leia, right there, because.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you right here. Watch Harrison Ford's lips when Leia talks. He mouths her words. But anyway, go ahead.
Yep.
It's her.
Oh, Harrison.
Doesn't that take you out of it? I just ruined Empire Strikes Back for y'all. There we go.
Yeah. Now I can never watch this movie again.
Yeah. Unlikely that'll happen.
But like right there, your future's not written in stone, but right there, a romantic entanglement, that might be enough reason to make the case for Luke over Leia. I know that Ben had to have seen something in Luke to begin with, other than he's a boy.
I think it's more along the lines of, when you start thinking that, with that certain point of view idea of which one of the two would they train, I think in some ways it makes sense for Ben. Ben was watching over Luke. Ben had little to no idea what Leia was up to, whereas Yoda kept tabs of the Force on both of them. So, it's a different dynamic that we're seeing. Both of them have their pluses and their minuses. I think it just, at this point, it's more along the lines of which one do we know? What choices do we have? It's Luke is here and Leia isn't.
Two things. One, this was also the first time when and it probably wasn't until I was like in my 30s when I realized, well, the R2 would need to be charged every now and again. But two, I think what's really interesting here is that we're talking about this movie in the context of all the other things, right? All the other movies, all the other, TV series, all the books and everything like that. And by the way, I still think they did Yoda great here. I thought Yoda was great in The Last Jedi. I was glad that they changed Phantom Menace Yoda to a digital Yoda, because that puppet sucked. Anyway, like,
I would agree with that. One thing we jumped with, and I want to bring up is like we always talk about changes that bother us from the special editions, etc. I don't like that they lost that line from Luke of "You're lucky you don't taste very good."
yeah.
I love that line, and they ended up taking it out. I guess apparently the audio wasn't as good anymore; it hadn't held up or something.
But they'll put in McClunky.
Exactly.
No, well, no. I mean, actually, I remember when they came out with the special editions. I forget what's the name of the producers from the prequels.
Rick McCallum.
McCallum.
They had an interview with him talking about the special editions because he co-produced that, and he said the degradation of the original print was such to a point that, if they hadn't done it back in 96, 97, they were going to lose it. Like,
by the way, sorry, real quick, Yoda and R2 fighting over the lamp is awesome until you think of the series of episodes in the Clone Wars where he and Yoda go on this little mission together. He obviously knows who Yoda is. Again, it's just, so I think that's not a criticism of this movie. I think that's more of a criticism of the Clone Wars, where they should have said, somebody should have been like, yeah, but then that's not going to make any sense why Yoda's beating R2 with a cane and R2's trying to take something from him. We should have just left R2 out of that whole Clone Wars arc.
Sorry
to interrupt you, Fredo. I'm sorry.
Well, I had another thought too, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Relating to that specifically, because like I've seen people who watch these movies in order now, and I start with Episode 1 and go that way, and by the time they get to Empire, they're like, "Is Yoda senile? Like, what's going on with him?" And like you could postulate that R2's having a similar reaction in that moment, like, man, this old man lost his mind.
We've all been locked in our house for how long now? We're all kind of like going a little mad. So.
Well, look, because what's interesting is at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Bail makes the point to Captain Antilles to have 3PO's mind wiped. He says nothing about R2.
Not R2's. Yeah.
So R2's supposed to have all these recordings, all this memory, all this stuff that he has from everything he did in the prequels, and the Clone Wars and everything that he went through. And even though he might not be able to speak, in a language they understand, 3PO does. It could always have him translate everything. But I guess they figured that's all right. Nobody's going to question it.
By the way, we were talking about you're just talking about 3PO understanding things. One of the greatest things that the Solo movie did was to make that one line from 3PO saying, "I don't know where your ship learned to communicate, but it's got a peculiar dialect."
Mm-hmm.
And the Solo movie, now knowing that L3 is the one talking in the Falcon, and the way L3 was designed, that was well thought out. Just like, we got to have, they couldn't have had, another C-3PO as L3. It had to have been somebody who was a little bit more,
confrontational and
gutter, it's a little bit more, mind in the gutter type of a, person. So
speaking of mind in the gutter, we'll get to the romance scene here. And second shout out to John Williams on the score, because he creates a new musical cue for Han and Leia at this point. And it's and then the C-3PO comes in. Sorry, you're gonna have to edit that one out, Dave. You're like, yeah, damn it.
And Han's reaction, "Thank you so much."
We're about to get our first in-universe, well, not in the universe, but our first introduction to the Emperor properly.
Which that was, if you talk about the changes that were made, changing the Emperor to Ian McDiarmid was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do.
I'll say too, like, our experience of these movies, it like sort of dictates how we see them, right? When we're growing up, we all had Monkey Woman growing up, right?
Yes.
The other thing was like we just saw when you show those Imperial officers making their report. One of them is like cowering because he's dying.
Yeah.
And you don't see that in the old VHS and in the old letterboxed 4x3 version of the film. You don't see that, and you lose that. And I'm glad to have it back.
And there you go, the young rebel who destroyed the Death Star, offspring of Anakin Skywalker. So here's all the subtle changes that they made to the script when they put in Ian McDermott to not have it be, is the son of.
Yeah, they make a point not to say it's your son, but because obviously that would just ruin the whole. I can't believe that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
That would have been amazing.
That was the best Simpsons moment.
I mean, that would have been the biggest middle finger.
Mm-hmm.
Like spoiling that twist, like in the first, half of the movie. I mean, people would have never forgiven that.
Nope. But I love that. I can think of Robot Chicken. It's like, wow, the knees must be hurting right now, huh?
Yeah, you look like a little pepper shaker. Poor R2 left out in the rain. I mean, and peeking in, like, hey, come on, I want some soup too. But that was the other thing. Sequel trilogy, had no use for R2-D2. All you needed to do was, I mean, really, he didn't do much here, but you can see him peeking through the window there. He didn't have much to do, but he was still there and still kind of doing things. By the way, they said here coming up that Irvin Kershner had Mark Hamill hit his head, I think it was like 16 times. About 16 times until he had one that he liked. And he said when Mark Hamill was having trouble with the Dagobah scenes with Yoda, Frank Oz brought in Miss Piggy to make him laugh. So there you go.
So he was acting with her before he made the Muppet Show, because it's right after this that he's in the Muppet Show with because he's wearing this very same outfit. Oh wait, here you go. Here comes Ben, and the reveal. I always loved the way that he went from the silly, goofy Yoda to the whole serious Jedi Master Yoda.
Don't mess with me, Yoda. Yeah,
exactly. He's like, yep, that's me.
Switch. But it's I like how his character has that duality. He wasn't just like playing at being playful and silly, because you see him like with the Padawans in episode 2. There are other and then of course Last Jedi, he's very playful in like blowing up the Force tree and everything. I like that part of his personality and that it's genuine.
But then again, it's a nice way to disarm Luke, a way to see how he really behaves. It's kind of like everybody right now discussing the whole idea of the shopping cart mindset. If there's no benefit to you to do something good for somebody else, how would you behave? And Yoda's challenging Luke, or he's testing Luke. How do you behave around somebody who's more of a pain in the neck than a threat? It's not really going to hurt you, or at least you don't think it's going to hurt you.
I come back to that short story that I think really helps this scene, where it's like Yoda doesn't want to. And I think he's trying to prove to Obi-Wan that, no, this isn't the one that we go with.
And he finally just gives up, because it's like, well, I guess we got to have to.
By the way, bad lip reading did this so well. Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep.
But I do I always go back like, well, when he goes, I'm not a friend. It's like, oh, you will be. And I'm like, what the heck are you planning on doing to him? That always kind of freaked me out as a kid.
Tie
yeah, it's
bombers.
pretty
are
ominous
cool.
music too.
Yeah.
And the Minox. Okay, so this is a scene that bothers me in the same way that you can, when you, Aaron, see Harrison mouthing the words, when they go out into the cave, and it looks like they're just like standing on a gym mat.
That's probably what they are saying.
It irritates me to no end.
I'm really not interested in your opinions, 3PO.
Mhm.
By the way, for 3PO's line coming up, a little bit later is I use it every time like a roach is flying around or some Louisiana swamp monster. It's like, oh, beastly things, shoo, shoo. Feels like Rod Stewart's stomach. Oh. Again, Family Guy just cracks me up. So this bothers you?
Yeah, like back, you see where Chewie's walking back there. It's just like, it looks like a gym mat.
It is kind of like they're in a laser tag facility or something.
Well, and I guess part of the thing is they didn't want to, build too much of anything because it would have revealed what it really was. And that's kind of the problem that you run into. Is that if you develop a bigger set, so to speak, all of a sudden you're like, those walls don't look like walls; they look like something else, and all of a sudden you start going like, oh, it spoils the reveal before you get to it.
So
yeah.
by the way, I will say this. I do have a problem. Leia is like tough in every other element unless some flying creature is buzzing her head. She's like the toughest character in this entire saga, but unless a bird is flying, by her head. If a bird flies by me, I cry like a little kid. I mean, I don't, but I'm not the toughest person on the planet. She, that just kind of bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, how many tough women do you know who live in the New Orleans and Louisiana who, when all the bugs are flying out every springtime, run indoors? So
yeah, it's not just women; it's all of us. Yeah.
well, that's what I mean. It's but in this case specifically, speaking of Leia, but yeah, all of a sudden you start getting flying roaches and termite swarms and whatnot. All of a sudden everybody's going like, nope, we're going inside.
But again, they're bickering as they're running in, to the, into
Yeah,
the
I'm not a
Falcon.
committee.
But I'm not a committee. And by
Oh,
the way, this is so clearly a sock puppet, but I have no problem with it being a sock puppet.
again, it's only a moment. It's not it's not meant to be a big thing. It's just the next kind of, okay, let's ramp it up again and get them back out into space kind of thing. So it does its job. And I think sometimes we all expect every special effect to be a massive thing. And sometimes the best ones are the small ones that only come in a moment and off they go.
By the way, if we're complaining about special effects, these are the least effective Yoda scenes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Where you can
By
totally
far.
tell it's a puppet. Yeah.
Yeah, hanging onto his back.
Well, I mean, the cutaway, the long distance one, not the close ups.
How long?
Right.
Okay, so how long do we think Luke was training on Dagobah?
Did they say was it like a couple of weeks at most? I mean, because
I don't know, because then
Yeah.
that means that Han and Leia are, in the stomach of the asteroid
Why not?
monster for a long time as well. I'm just saying that's just either it's just weird, just to kind of put that. And I guess it is one of the you've got to sometimes just kill the timeline and just say these things happened, and don't worry if they happen concurrently or whatnot. But I'm just wondering how long he trained on Dagobah.
I know that people, that's not an official number at this point still. But yeah, I'd go with the interpretation of a few weeks, or maybe even a couple of months, no longer than that. I know that some people have said years, and I can't buy that. But that more time can elapse for Han and Leia and company beyond what they show on screen. So
Well, and they could have very easily, after that asteroid field, they could have gone someplace else and then got caught up with the Empire again. Yeah, so who knows? I will say,
and the other thing too is like they may not have been flying at maximum speed at that point when they leave the asteroid field because they had a damaged ship still and all that. So
so let's talk about the cave scene.
Mm-hmm.
Could they made it a little bit clearer to 7-year-old Aaron, because that was the demographic that they were shooting for, but it was all sorts of he's fighting Darth Vader. Oh, what? They just chopped off his head, and that's Luke, and I don't know what just happened here. Well, I mean, obviously we all get it now, but you think they shot a little high on this one?
No, actually, I think it works fine. Dave?
yeah, I mean, yeah, to your point, yeah, I mean, I think I was in my teens before I figured this out.
I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's great. Yeah. But for when your key demographic is, like I said, that 10-year-old kid, it's like,
I think I had to explain it like very clearly to my kids, like why is his face there? Like that was a question that came up, and so it's like, well, it's a vision. They're showing him what will happen if he gives in the dark side.
Yeah, we all have the dark side within us,
right? And so, I mean, like obviously, we all understand that point, and it's very effective. But like you said, if your key demographic is 6-year-olds, it's going to go over their head. But that's okay. These movies aren't strictly for kids. They're mostly for kids.
But I guess what I'll say is that that idea, I mean, yes, it's far more esoteric than I think some of the other elements are. But what I think I like about it is that it's introducing that dark element that A New Hope really didn't have. It's because A New Hope is very clean. Good guys are good, bad guys are bad. And this is the first time we get an introduction of doubt into that. That idea that bad can come from good and good can come from, it can be in bad places, that kind of thing. So, and also that concept of Luke not recognizing what's inside of him, that ability to turn to the dark side.
But at the same time, it's foreshadowing of Vader is your father. Yeah, it's the reveal, which Yoda obviously knows.
Yeah,
so we're back.
It's Bosk.
No, my favorite line is.
Time.
My favorite line. We don't need those scum. Yes, sir. just dismissing him.
And here comes your boy.
Yes.
By the way, did you read that apparently Dengar was in The Rise of Skywalker?
No, where?
Google it quick. Go ahead. We got time. Google it. He was in The Rise of Skywalker. He has spent time he's more android now, and he'd been trying to keep himself alive. But yeah, and they kind of changed his name a little bit. Yeah. Dengar.
In the dictionary?
That's the one they decided to put in The Rise of Skywalker. Dengar. Anyway.
Not Bosk.
I do remember. I will say this: Boba Fett. I know we kind of snarl and kind of make fun of everything. That was the coolest looking thing that you have probably seen as a 7-year-old kid, and he just looked cool. He sounded cool. I remember that action figure was awesome when I was able to get it. All the bounty hunters kind of look cool, but Boba Fett that's just a good design. It's just a good design.
And everybody had him introduced back in the Christmas special. So
but I didn't remember that. I mean, I remember watching the Christmas special, but kinda. I mean, when it went to stuff that, I don't know. But really, this was the first time that it just, like I said, looked really cool.
Hmm.
You know, the other thing about Empire Strikes Back, I remember this was the first. I remember when we were on the playground in elementary school at recess. I mean, my friends and I, we would like quote unquote play Empire Strikes Back. We would reenact, you know, different scenes and everything. You know, it's so it's that first movie that really, you know, kind of made me run around the yard and want to, you know,
Hmm.
be a Jedi, be Han Solo, whatever. You know,
Did you have the lunchbox?
I'm sure I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember as a kid having the Empire
Yeah.
Strikes Back metal lunchbox with the
I,
plastic thermos.
I remember my dad we destroyed how many of his, you know, golf club tubes, you know, that you got these tubes that you know, so your golf clubs wouldn't get tangled up with one another. We'd just take those and make those into lightsabers all the time. You could beat the hell out of each other. But
You know, to the Boba Fett though, didn't his toy come out prior to this movie?
Believe so.
I mean, like they were using him in the marketing. Like to Fredo's point, I
that's
know that
right.
the
You could pre-order him. It was a new character from the upcoming movie. Yep, you're right.
and the you know you had the holiday specialties, obviously, and then that was part of the marketing was this new important character.
He was the Sith trooper of his day.
By the way, best line that any teacher could have ever gotten is "Do
Awesome.
or do not. There is no try."
What does that mean? I don't know. Sounded better when Yoda said it.
You know, and I understand the wordsmithing that people put behind it. It is kind of funny. It's like, how can I do something if I don't try to do it? But it's about commitment. You know, it's about being in the moment. And if you say you're going to do something, then do it or don't. Don't be namby-pamby about it. And that's what Luke was being. Luke wanted the title of being Jedi and wanted the lightsaber. Really, at this point, he had no commitment. So,
but that was another thing as a 7-year-old you don't really understand.
No.
And there's a reason that, like, for a lot of us, Empire Strikes Back wasn't our favorite movie when we were kids. Was because of this section of the movie.
Because it's all slow.
Yeah, and you know, as you get older, you come to appreciate these scenes so much more, and they become some of the best scenes in the entire saga. But obviously, yeah, I mean, the scene in the cave, Yoda's advice, Luke training,
Yoda talking about the Force now. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, it's bigger than, again, 7-year-old Aaron's brain could, you know, capture. Because, you know, I remember I was going to CCD and trying to figure out how God, you know, played into everything, and how it made not a lot of sense. You know, you just bought what the nuns were giving you, and here Yoda's doing the same thing. You know, he's talking about how, you know, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. That didn't hit me until I was in my, you know, teens or 20s. You know, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah, it's that idea. I mean, it's interesting because outside of the initial speech that that Ben gives you, and A New Hope, when it's introducing the whole concept of the Jedi, and this moment right here, that's the extent of a description of what the Force is. You don't get more than that. It's, you know, so when Rey in Last Jedi goes, it's a power that the Jedi have that helps them move rocks. It makes sense why she would believe such a thing, because, you know, nobody can quite, you know, nobody else has come along to describe it or teach it better, you know, in that interim. And Luke didn't really get much more than that.
But Dave, you're right. This is a better movie for the middle school to high school, you know, kid, you know, that's trying to find their place in the world, you know.
Plus, at that point, I think you're more into like dark stuff and whatnot. You're more in tune with the emotional ups and downs of life.
Well, let's talk about that. When you say that, the, you know, dark stuff, the first 30, 40 minutes of this movie is all white and bright and and the next we're now what over an hour and some in, and it has been nothing but dark.
Mm-hmm.
Just
And
not,
even
I'm not talking from a tone standpoint. I'm just talking
right,
from it's the lights haven't been on. We've been in space or an asteroid or a
or
slug's
swamp.
gullet or a swamp. It's like everything is it's just heavy and dark.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant, though. It's brilliant filmmaking because, like you said, it does. It's not. You're not speaking to the story beats, but the story beats match what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about. We go from a bright environment and our characters being in a good place to being in a very dark place.
Because you're
Sorry,
yeah. 'Cause-
another best line coming up here. Apology accepted, Captain Nita. But anyway, go ahead, Fredo.
that's what I was gonna say. So I was gonna mention in this scene, there's all this lighting around them, but it's shot rather dark because there's a focus on Captain Need as he falls to his death, and even though you're in a well lit environment, it's all grays and blacks. Even the walls are a darker shade of blue, so there's not a lot. I mean, and when we come up to Cloud City, it's bright and it's sunny and it's got white walls, but it's going to juxtapose the darkness that's underneath it. We're not going to get back to that bright, sunny, uh, bright place of that we were in Hoth at the beginning of the movie.
It's an incredible stylistic choice, and it's genius because you see the bright on the surface, like you're saying, which makes you believe,
That you're
oh,
safe.
okay, we're safe. We're coming out of this now. It's going to be okay. And no, we're not at all.
By the way, I wish Dave Filoni in the Clone Wars at some point would have had an Anakin Captain Piet moment to why that would explain why Vader was so forgiving of Captain Admiral Piet. Because he says, "Don't fail me again," but he fails him again. But Captain Piet survived through Return of the Jedi, so I think that would have been a cute little interaction. Like maybe Captain Piet saved Anakin's life in a battle or skirmish somewhere, and so I don't know.
Would have been interesting. Yeah, particularly because you do get those introductions to those other major characters in Clone Wars, like Tarkin, and that later on go on to have a bigger and stronger presence in not only in the movies but in Rebels.
By the way, this is the first time that Leia and Han are like guard down, and there's really no tension. They're just at ease with each other.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. They're both talking about Lando and how he goes way back to them, but it's not. No, there's not a confrontation here for the two of them. And then she even applauds him. Gives him credit for, hey, you got a good idea.
And
have they ever explained how did Boba Fett know to put the slave one in with the garbage?
Oh, that the joke, or I mean, at least the theory, is that he saw it done in Attack of the Clones. Because Obi-Wan pulls that maneuver to survive
in the asteroid,
to survive the blast. He hides on an asteroid,
right,
and so that's the theory that Boba saw that then, and
then just said, "Okay, take my ship and put me in the trash."
No, just the idea of let me hide, turn my ship off to escape detection until the danger passes. Then,
because they wouldn't have. I mean, Han and Chewie and Leia wouldn't have been looking for another ship, or they wouldn't have probably thought, even if there was a just ship floating around, they wouldn't have thought anything of it.
Right.
So, I mean, Boba Fett had the upper hand there.
Yeah. You were asking like how Boba thought of that they were doing that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean that was one of the theories that went around after that movie came out. Like,
that explains that. Yeah, I guess it makes sense, particularly when you consider, it's already lived through it once.
Yeah, so that's how you know to look for it again, right? You've seen it before. You're like, oh, I know what they're gonna do.
Mhm. And then here we get some more of the Yoda teaching Jedi to let go of stuff.
Yeah, and if you honor what they fight for, yeah,
Well,
then
that's gonna come
it's
up in a,
okay for them to die. It's like,
yeah,
that is, it's heady stuff.
yeah,
But it's also very selfish because he's not, on one hand, yes, he's teaching him to be a Jedi, but on the other hand, it's like, crap, if this guy leaves, then we're all screwed. So he's manipulating Luke. There's a lot
right.
of manipulation, not necessarily teaching, but there's a lot of manipulation that's going on. Even then, after we get past when we come back to Dagobah and he's leaving, and Ben is, there's, like I said, there's a lot of manipulation that goes on.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
they're trying to convince him to stay and finish his training. And what's interesting is
but not
the
for his own good, or not
right,
even, but to serve their purpose.
right, right.
He's a tool. It's very much Dumbledore using Harry Potter to, get rid of. I mean, even though, so George Lucas came up with the idea first, but it's just they're
Mhm.
using. He's being used as a tool. It's not. No, no, it's just kind of
Yeah, he
manipulative.
does. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't have. I mean, he has free will in as much as they're willing to give him information, which I guess is part of the point. Is that as the teachers, they're supposed to be understanding of what he's going through and kind of recognize. Okay, are you ready for this bit of data? Or are you ready for your next lesson? But at the same time, they're not helping him buy in. They're just no. You got to do this.
So, how'd you feel about the special edition makeover for Cloud City?
It has aged a little bit, but I was mostly okay with it at the time.
Can I be honest? I wasn't, just because I always loved the aesthetic of Cloud City, all those white walls that kind of enclosed the space. Again, that idea of really beautiful, kind of sort of art deco design of it, but at the same time, a place that's hiding danger and evil. But I don't know. I guess I just grew up with the original version of Cloud City so long that the first time I saw it, they'd taken out the walls. I'm like, well, they're in the clouds. What happens if somebody falls, out of a window?
Well, the bigger thing is that I just think that it seemed like it was a rush design. It seems
Hmm.
the map paintings seem very 2D.
Hmm. I mean, they
And
went back and fixed it from what
seemed
we first saw.
seems very flat.
Yeah, they were. I know that they look better now. Back then, when we first saw them in '97, it looked way worse.
Another nice little thing that Solo the movie did was, this interaction between Han and Lando here, where thinks he's going to hit him. That they turn that
Hmm.
on its head with looks like Han's going to hit Lando. Yeah, it's just nice. The people who made Solo really, and of course it was Kasdan, so it was, they did a good job.
Hmm.
What did you guys think, like, of Lando's betrayal when you were younger? Because for me, I was always more willing to forgive Han Solo not helping at the end of A New Hope than I was Lando betraying them in this movie. And as I've grown older, I've begun to think, did I have that backwards? Because, like, Lando's really between a rock and a hard place.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. I don't remember having oh my goodness, he's a bad guy. Well, I didn't think he was a good guy. Of course,
Hmm.
they sell him from the very beginning as being kind of slick. So, you're never quite sure. He's, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that. Lando. I mean, it's always interesting that characters that are kind of related to Han have always struck me as coming from another more modern universe than everybody else. Because Lando looks and sounds and feels like someone who just stepped out of a 1979 street into the Star Wars universe. Like, he's far more modern than say somebody like Luke or Chewbacca or somebody like that. But much, he's very much in a vein like Lando, fast talking, capable of swindling people around, and get him to buy into whatever they want to do. So, I guess his betrayal, it was always. I mean, I kind of understood where he was coming from, but at the same time, of course, at that moment you don't care. You're just like, I can't believe you betrayed him.
That moment of C-3PO, by the way, that just occurred of him getting blown to bits, that kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier in the movie, where C-3PO is lagging behind, and as a small child, you probably would care more about that character, and now they just blow him up. It's like, oh my gosh, is he dead? What's going on?
So, by the way, this is an interesting little tidbit. That again, it's on IMDb. Their trivia. It says, I'll just read from it. It says, Lee Brackett's first draft of the screenplay contained the revelation of Luke's sister, her existence disclosed by the ghost of Anakin Skywalker. Referred to as Nelith Skywalker, Anakin explains that it was he, not Obi-Wan, who separated the twins at birth to protect them from Darth Vader, and that Nelith also underwent Jedi training in another part of the galaxy so she could join forces with Luke to defeat the Sith. This concept was dropped in the second draft of the screenplay along with the appearance of Anakin Skywalker and replaced with a scene of Obi-Wan and Yoda discussing how they must find another Jedi apprentice in anticipation of Luke's failure. This too changed in later drafts, resulting in the more ambiguous scene in the final version where Yoda assures Obi-Wan that, quote, there is another.
It's interesting. There's as far back as the first draft, they had an idea of a sister for Luke.
Yeah.
Even if who that sister was and how she and Luke came to be separated shifted per the needs of of what they were writing later on. It's an interesting dynamic.
Here's the other thing. Let's put this scene here into context. We also know that Yoda and Obi-Wan, now if you're thinking about in Star Wars Rebels, Yoda and Obi-Wan both know that somewhere out there is Ezra Bridger. Somewhere out there is Ahsoka Tano. So, no, there is another. Yeah, it could be Leia, but there's also, they've got some other options out there.
Well, what's interesting, and that's actually what I was thinking as I was watching Rebels, is there were, because we never get to see Ezra and Thrawn in the original trilogy, and the way that they found to explain that was, I thought, brilliant, which was they weren't anywhere near the middle, the Galactic Rebellion beyond the finale. They just ended up in an uncharted part of space, and after the wars, when Sabine and Ahsoka go to find them. Because that explains, okay, well, how come you didn't see Ezra, who was a kind of sort of properly trained Jedi in this trilogy? Well, that's why. That's why Luke is the only option.
I will say, by the way, now that we're seeing Han and Leia being, I said, they relax, and you see Han give Leia a kiss on the forehead. I don't necessarily like that Han and Leia interaction when they start getting all, you like the bickering, you like the, you like the couple who flips each other crap. You know what I mean?
But I also think it's a sign of their dynamic, that and it's an interesting. They seem more comfortable bickering. So all of a sudden, not being in the middle of arguing with one another, kind of seems almost kind of surprising, because you're expecting that from them. Like even like right now when Han says that Lando's gonna have people that can fix 3PO, and she's like, no thanks, you get a little bit of that back.
By the way, do you think one of the Ugnaughts is Queel?
Probably not. They seem very animalistic compared to Queel.
But he said that he was in servitude to the Empire, and the Empire basically takes over Cloud City after this. So I don't know.
I would guess not, but because the Ugnaughts have changed a little bit from their representation here.
And he hadn't spoken then, so Portly's not here.
I will say this scene coming up with the surprise in the dining room. I didn't see as a kid. I remembered I didn't see that coming at all. But I also remember it stuck with me so much that was the scene that I tried to recreate all the time with my action figures.
Did you ever read the original Marvel comic books for Star Wars?
For Star Wars, I did.
Okay, so you remember there's actually, I remember this vividly. One of the comic books has the dinner scene. Like, like after they get captured here, the door closes. And actually, one of the comic books actually has them having their dinner around that table.
I
I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was always interesting to me that they actually put that in there.
There was something here. Darth Vader sarcastically inviting Han to dinner is the only time in any of the Star Wars movies that Vader speaks directly to Han. However, James Earl Jones, who voiced Vader, and Harrison Ford would directly interact in several scenes in Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games.
Right.
But I always loved Robot Chicken's take on this after, when the doors close and, Boba Fett's flipping crap to Han and, and
By the way, did you hear the
Vader's trying to drink,
Did you hear the Spurs?
No, I don't have sound on.
Okay,
So.
you're gonna have to go back
you're gonna have to go back. You got to go back and watch it. Yeah, the Spurs are there, sir. But yeah, I've always loved that scene too, and it just really kind of speaks to you that gunslinger mentality of Han Solo, where he comes out firing, and Vader just easily parrying it because he's just so much more powerful.
And we've never seen anything. We've never seen anything like that when Vader's blocking laser blasts. I remember just going, "What? Whoa! That really?" So
Vader had obviously dueled Obi-Wan, and he had spent some time around Leia, but he had never spent any time around Luke or Han, really. And so that was just something else.
That was a great Hamlet moment there with Chewie holding 3PO's head.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's one of the most understated moments in any of the movies, and it
speaks so much to Chewbacca's character. Again, they've made him, even just showing the caring nature of that character
and the tragedy that they're all experiencing.
Yeah.
He's like, "This is my friend. I knew that this was my friend. I knew who he was.
He made me laugh." Yeah.
And yet, here we are now we're in the deep end.
By the way, an interesting little stormtrooper tidbit. In A New Hope, the stormtroopers' frowns are gray, and starting in The Empire Strikes Back, they are black. So that's how you know if you see somebody in the 501st, you'll know if they're a New Hope stormtrooper or if they are a Empire Strikes Back or Jedi stormtrooper because of the frown.
Did it bother you that they put Tamora Morrison's voice in?
No, made sense. Made sense.
Yeah, I mean, once they made the decision to link all 6 movies together, you kind of had to. I mean, once you put in Ian McDiarmid and you're making all this stuff kind of trying to fit together into one, you kind of sort of have to. And it's a small role. I think the fan base makes a bigger deal of Boba Fett than the movie ever does. He's a bounty hunter. He's the one who's captured them. He's gonna get paid. He's gonna take Han to Jabba. That's it. That's the extent of his role. We want to see Han get some comeuppance in Return of the Jedi, and we do. But beyond that, that's the extent of his service to the story. I think the fans built him up to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Thus, we get everything from action figures to the Mandalorian.
I feel terrible. It's just some great Han Solo lines.
By the way, it's interesting that they don't ask him anything. No, they've captured the leadership of the rebellion, Princess Leia. They've captured Han Solo, and they're not interested in asking anything. They're just tools to get Luke.
Yeah.
They're gonna cause him enough pain so that Luke can feel it through the Force and come running.
You know, it is a missed opportunity. Like, if you think about it in those terms, like, he could have tried to mine them for some information while he had them.
Right. Because you got to know they're going to try to reconnect with what's left of the Rebel Alliance who's flown out from Hoth. And,
Well,
but no, not interested in any of that.
but what Palpatine and Vader are afraid of is that Palpatine sees that Luke can destroy them.
Mhm.
The ultimate fear of the Sith is dying. The ultimate fear. That's why Palpatine clones himself a gazillion times. You
Mhm.
know, the ultimate fear is dying. The
It's-
Jedi don't fear death because they know that they're going to become part of the Force, and so all the other things, as far as running the Empire or defeating the rebels, that's secondary to
Right.
crap. We got this guy who can destroy us, and
Right.
you don't get that context when you're 7 years old, watching Empire Strikes Back. You get it if you've seen episodes 1, 2, and 3 and watched the Clone Wars. So again, I think it's come back to it where if you look at it in that greater context of everything,
Right.
that
It's,
kind of what seems to be a plot hole makes sense now.
no, absolutely. No, and it's something you said, the whole, because that's part of the arc of Anakin Skywalker. It's that whole death denial. It's his desire to prevent those he loves from dying. He wants that power. And that's the carrot that Palpatine, you know, hangs above Anakin's head in Episode 3. That he knows that's how he can get him. And sure enough, that's the one thing because he can't do without his mom. He loses his mom. He can't do without Padme. And the idea of all of a sudden losing her, it's what leads him to fall and actually losing her. Tragic.
By the way, I liked what I think it was Bryce Dallas Howard said on the latest Disney Gallery. It said
Mhm.
Kathleen Kennedy told her that every Star Wars character has a silhouette. It's like think about this scene right here in the chamber in the Cloud City, the carbon freezing chamber. I mean, everybody's a shadow, but you
Mhm.
know who it is,
Mhm.
right? You know it's Boba Fett. You know it's Darth Vader. You know it's Leia. You know it. It's really interesting when you think about that way. You can
Mhm.
because they're talking about that with Cara Dune. You see, she's backlit. You see this silhouette. You know that it's them. They're
And
Right.
such
and, it,
distinctive characters.
and then in a couple minutes, when you see Luke and Vader face off, and you see their silhouettes,
Yeah.
and Luke kind of strikes his Peter Pan pose.
Hey, by the way, why do you think Vader stopped Boba Fett from shooting Chewbacca? And don't give me the retcon of he built C-3PO. I mean, that's a funny joke. But why do you think in 1980 they made the decision, no, don't he Vader stops Boba Fett from killing Chewbacca?
I think, well, I mean, it's an interesting idea to consider, but I just thought at the time, okay, no, he doesn't want them dead because he may want them for other reasons. Remember, he's
Well,
gonna tell Lando to take him on, put him on a shuttle to send to the Star Destroyer. So he clearly has other plans in mind for Chewie and for Leia that go beyond this moment.
yeah, I think it answers our question about why he didn't ask Han Solo any questions, because
Mhm.
like he's gonna take them with him here and ask them questions at his leisure later on.
Mm-hmm. But we kind of skipped the line that everybody remembers. The most romantic line in Star Wars history.
Yeah, we just
Three,
like
three,
right by it.
yep, three dudes watching Empire Strikes Back. We skipped all the romance. Yeah.
The whole
Um,
"I love you, I know."
I will say, however, the music in this scene is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I love the lighting.
There
The
was a
lighting.
book that came out, and I just found out about this recently. I can't remember if it was something we talked about, but it's kind of a behind the scenes look at Empire Strikes Back. This book hadn't come out recently. I mean, it's an older book, but I just found out about it recently. And they have it like verbatim, the conversations that were going on between Kirshner and Han Solo or Harrison Ford
Mm-hmm.
about what that line should be during this scene. It was really interesting to see because, like, I'd always heard the interviews about kind of how that came together, and it varied a little bit.
Mhm.
This transcript, it varied a little bit. So I didn't know if you guys had heard anything about that or seen that.
I've only
No.
seen the most recent. I think it was whatever. There was some documentary that came out not too long ago, and Kirshner was saying they'd gone through a bunch of different renditions, and he finally said, "Harrison, just go. Whatever you say is, just whatever comes to your mind, say it." And then he said, "I know," and he was like, "It was perfect." So I don't know. I love you too does not work in that between those two.
Well,
After
and it doesn't work for the relationship right now. They
yeah,
finally
Yeah.
come into that moment, but
well,
you
and
know that
by
Han, yeah.
and by saying I know, it says a lot about the Han Solo character, who has been pretty much just about himself.
Mhm.
Um, and Leia is, yeah, she's saying I love you personally. I, Leia, love you, Han. But it's also saying that, Han, you have people who love you, and
Mhm.
Han is recognizing that, and that he's sacrificing himself for a greater cause. Um, so I think that's pretty powerful. Um, the then of course I want to say the way they turn some of these things on their head in the Solo movie when he says to Lando, "I hate you," or Lando says, "I hate you," and he says, "I know," or go to the Rise of Skywalker, and when Kylo or Ben says, "Dad," and Han Solo says, "I
I
know."
know.
That was just, I was like, oh, that was just a great moment in that movie. So,
Mhm.
by the way, the Imperial officer holding Leia there is the guy who played Boba Fett, Jeremy Bulloch. Just so you know, I'm a couple
Well,
seconds behind you guys.
well, yeah. No. I see it right now. Yeah, it's a good way to get his face on screen because otherwise you're not gonna see him.
It's a trap. Oh,
Yeah. It's a trap.
and Luke doesn't listen. It's a trap. Don't do this. Oh, okay, I'm gonna go after you. It's like he is kind of a clumsy hero.
Mhm. Well, and again, it's the idea of he hasn't gone through his complete training. He doesn't really know the extent of everything.
And
He's
poor R2.
yeah, he's slowly being led down the path by his masters because he's got tremendous power, but he doesn't really know how to use it. So it's an interesting dynamic that you got with Luke because he is that ultimate Joseph Campbell hero, but he's not cognizant of it whatsoever. So he's not in a position to impact stuff. He can only react. It's not until Return of the Jedi, I think, that we finally see him kind of take leadership and ownership of where his path is or goes.
And here we go again. I've just never really paid attention to just how aesthetically, I mean, just the lighting is dark
Mm-hmm.
in this whole movie.
Yeah, no, particularly right here. I mean, this is all made to denote like the eighth circle of hell. With all the reds and the shadows and the smoke.
Sure.
This is not designed. This is designed to be menacing and dangerous, and it's the perfect environment where you would find Darth Vader. You're not going to find somebody warm and cuddly here.
I also find interesting that Vader is fighting one-handed
Mm-hmm.
after, in A New Hope, it was two-handed, two hands on the saber, and he's toying with Luke through this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Because again, it's the idea of he wanted to kill Obi-Wan. He doesn't want to kill Luke, but he knows he's got to go through the motions with him, tire him out, get him on the carbon freeze chamber, and then boom, there you go.
By the way, back up a couple minutes, and Lando had the very first Apple Watch to wake up Lobot. And
By the way, is it just me, or does Chewie take a long time in choking Lando?
Yeah, he probably could have ended him in like 10 seconds.
I think he was going to make him suffer.
Okay.
It wasn't going to be a quick death because he could have ripped his arms out of his socket. We all know that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's he allowed his friend to be tortured, so it's like, all right, comes around, goes around. Don't start none, won't be none.
Hmm.
We're about to see the ice maker guy.
Oh yeah, Wolruf Hood, I think it is. Yeah, the ice cream maker dude.
Well, I
Oh my,
wonder.
go ahead,
Has any,
Fredo.
now, I was gonna say, has anybody ever asked? Did anybody ever ask Peter Maker what it was like running with that 3PO backpack on him
Oh God, I
for all
don't
these
know. It's
scenes?
probably what killed his knees, apart
Yeah,
from being 7 feet tall. But
I mean, because you got to figure. I mean, he's carrying all that for all these scenes from the moment they walk into the carbon freeze chamber till they get back onto Millennium Falcon. That's going to be at least a good 8 to 10 days of shooting.
and, and by the way, hasn't anybody learned that if there's going to be one person you're going or one character you're going to listen to, it's going to be R2D2. He's always got the right answer, and he's telling them, "Hey, Falcon's not fixed," and everybody's just poo-pooing him. Man, but also Robot Chicken always a good had a good interaction. It's like Slave One was the most inappropriately named ship, probably. But
Yep. Okay, and
uh,
here we go. I always love this jump from Darth Vader when he's jumping at the screen.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's only because he doesn't really jump too many times in the whole. I think this might be the one time
I
that
think
he's going
so.
to jump. Which I remember because when I was playing Jedi Fallen Order, there's a scene, spoiler alert for that game, when the climax when he shows up and he jumps down, and everybody, and I remember seeing somebody kind of reacting to it, and kind of like, "Wow, I can't believe you jumped! I didn't know you could do that." It's like, yeah, we saw him jump once.
All right, so let's talk about people who get all butthurt about new force powers. And let's think about all the new force powers we've seen in this movie. We have seen Luke grab a lightsaber using his mind. We've seen the super jump. What other force powers have we seen? I guess Fredo just died. Oh,
No, no, no. No,
uh,
being able to see into the future.
being able to see in the future. There's so all of a sudden we get, when force lightning comes in Return of the Jedi, people start going, "Oh, what? Now we got force lightning." And then Rey discovers something new. She can heal somebody. "Oh, what? Now we can heal somebody." It's like, do you think there are only like 5 force powers or something? And that's like the number that you shall count is 3. I mean, Star Wars fans drive me crazy sometimes. I don't know.
But that's again, and it's part of the idea that I was saying about Empire expanding the universe. It's that we're gonna get more information. We're gonna get new types of characters. We're gonna get new elements. So the idea of getting new force powers, well, of course, it always made perfect sense. You're expanding your knowledge of a thing, therefore, we're gonna get to hear and know more of it. So it always made sense that we're gonna pick up a new Jedi power here or there, in these movies. But so the concept of, oh my god, I can't believe we have never introduced force projections like we saw in Last Jedi, or force heal like we saw in Rise of Skywalker, and you're like, the force is whatever the writer director wants it to be. It's the ultimate Deus Ex Machina. Whatever they need the force to do in this movie, they can do.
By the way, Force Awakens, we were supposed to get more of a Bespin flashback. Vader and Luke dueling flashback instead of just Rey, in her Force vision. Instead of just going down the hall and then stumbling into the Knights of Ren, it was you were going to see Luke and Vader fighting.
Wonder why they
I
cut
felt
it.
robbed.
Yeah, I wonder why they cut that.
One thing I'll say about this movie, it's one of, I mean, for us, all 3 of us, it's one of the best, right? But I was like, if you want to critique it, right, it's required. There's kind of like no looking back at this point, because like with A New Hope, you can watch that movie beginning to end and say, I'm good. I just watched Star Wars. From this point forward, it's serialized, and you're in. You're either in or you're out, pretty much. And it's less accessible in a way than A New Hope is. It's also probably a little less subversive.
Mhm.
Here we go. By the way, sorry, real quick. Here comes
Yeah.
Ice Cream Maker guy. There he is.
Yeah.
Now,
and my favorite musical moment in the saga, as we noted on our musical episode.
Now, I was gonna say I agree with you, Dave, but I also think it's also a continue. I mean, this is the first, in a way, movie of the saga that kind of lives up to the whole Flash Gordon serialized idea, because that's what these movies are supposed to be. They're supposed to be the Flash Gordon serials where you have to come back every week to see the next exciting adventure. And whereas I think A New Hope took that ethos, but it was very self-contained. Like you watch A New Hope, never watch anything again. You're done. You're good. This one is one where like, okay, no, you got to come back to the movie theaters in 3 years' time to see the next exciting chapter.
Yeah, and a lot of people hated the ending.
Yeah, which I understand why. I mean, you're like, we don't get a resolution for all this.
But here's the thing, though. I will say this: as a kid, 7 years old, I remember that time in between. And do you guys remember Dynamite magazine? Was that in your school library at all?
No.
Anyway, it was just
sort of, yeah.
I remember there was a issue that was in our school library, and on the cover was Darth Vader, and it said Star Wars 3, is Darth Vader really Luke Skywalker's father? And I remember just those couple of years, it really started the, do you think this is possible, or no? It really, it was, as a kid, I had no problem with it, and it really made things exciting.
So here we go, the last part of the duel, and now Vader's using two hands.
Yeah, he's not toying anymore. He's starting to want butt,
Yeah, he's gonna finish this sucker right here, right now. But no, I think it's interesting because we kind of live in a golden age, so to speak, where up until last year we were getting a movie every year, and I know some people question whether that was too much, but even when we're getting the prequels, where it's like, okay, you're gonna get one every 3 years, it felt fine. I mean, you knew you were gonna get a new one, you knew you're gonna get continuation, but I always love the idea that this movie leaves so many loose threads, so it does lead to what's gonna happen next.
By the way, no, I was going to say just what's going on here. One thing that always did confuse me, and is kind of like when a lightsaber can kill you, or when a blaster can kill you or cause serious harm, and when it can't. And Luke hitting Vader in the shoulder, and it just makes him go ow.
Mm-hmm.
But then Vader lops off his wrist. Sure, there's some armor there, but it's just kind of interesting when a lightsaber can do damage and when it can't.
I always figured, well, not always, but I figured after seeing Clone Wars, he was wearing some of that clone armor, the good armor.
It's got to be some pretty epic armor.
Of course, the story behind here, maybe people listening don't know this story, but the line that was delivered by David Prowse on set was, Obi-Wan killed your father.
Right.
And it was only at the last, and those are the lines that Mark Hamill had in his script. And then at the last moment, Irvin Kershner pulled him aside and said, here's what the line's actually going to be. And it was, talk about a tightly held secret. If the internet had existed, like it did in 1980, 1979, that wouldn't have happened. It's kind of like, that's Baby Yoda, hiding Baby Yoda from us was, I can't believe they did it. They wouldn't have been able to keep this one under wraps. So
I remember seeing
only 3 people knew, or 4, or whatever.
4.
I mean, yeah.
By the way,
geez.
I will say one of the worst special edition addeds was right here when they made Luke scream as he fell.
But it wasn't his scream.
No, it was Palpatine. It was Emperor from Jedi, which made it even worse. It's like, first of all, he made him scream. I always thought it was awesome that he didn't, because it was, again, it was
he did it on purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
It was selfless. and then to make him scream, it's like an oh crap, what did I do? But then to use Palpatine's scream, that's lazy.
That was
You know,
very lazy.
ILM, that was lazy.
So, but no, actually going back to that point, because I saw a couple of interviews that Mark did around Last Jedi, and he said, yeah, basically, Irvin Kershner pulls him aside and goes, George knows, I know, Laurie Kasdan knows. When I tell you, you'll know, but if it gets out, we'll know who said.
Yeah.
And then, so for the whole year, and then I think James Earl Jones, because he had to read the line, was the fifth person who knew. So up until release day, that was it in terms of knowing this secret and being cognizant of it and being aware of what it would mean for everybody's expectations for the movie. And just, yeah, it's amazing that they kind of kept this under wraps for so long. And that I actually laughed because then he later on goes to say at the movie premiere, he's sitting next to Harrison Ford. And Harrison Ford looks at him and goes, hey, kid, you're not really effing, not joking with me, or you're not screwing around with me here, are you? This is for real. And apparently, what Irvin Kershner told him to play like if it's real. So,
how many of us, by the way, sorry, how many of us put Leia in the Force sensitive category? I mean, it's clear as a bell, but as a kid, I didn't think, oh yeah, Leia has the Force. Maybe that was just my male-dominated, sexist, 1980s, whatever,
right.
But I never put two and two together that sure there was a connection. Maybe Luke reached to Leia somehow, but there has to be. You got to have somebody pick up the phone on the other end. They can't just be, you know what I mean. I think a lot of people sell that moment there short or just kind of breeze by it. That, hey, listen, folks, don't be shocked in Return of the Jedi when she knows that she's got this power. Anyway.
Right. No, and I think what's interesting, I was going to say, it's interesting because we totally blow past it. It's like, why would we be contacting Leia? I mean, it makes sense because you're like, okay, well, it's not contacting Han, it'd be Leia, but it's a good way to kind of introduce the idea of Leia being Force sensitive, of having a connection to the Force that it's unsaid.
I agree.
By the way, also, she's on the pilot's seat. She's good enough to fly the Millennium Falcon again, and just didn't raise no eyebrows. Nobody had a problem with it. Everybody just accepted it as fact.
Mary Sue, Mary Sue, Mary Sue. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that didn't exist in 1980. But it's interesting. I mean, again, it's all this stuff that's always been in there, but we don't. We kind of just accepted it as fact because that was the way it was. And all I keep thinking of, by the way, kind of go back real quick with the "I'm your father" moment. I remember vividly the whole theater gasping, like the whole air just got sucked out of that moment because everybody's like, "What?"
I kind of in the special edition, I kind of like this edition of the Vader shuttle landing on the Star Destroyer. I think it's kind of a nice breakup in the continuity. It works, and it's like it always was kind of awkward. It's like how he's on the Star Destroyer now, but I thought they did well with that. After I just yelled at ILM for the scream, I thought they did the whole shuttle thing pretty well.
You don't mind that they took up "Bring My Ship"? Because they actually had, it's like, alert my Star Destroyer.
Yeah, alert my Star Destroyer for my arrival. Yeah, that was kind of a clumsy line, but I just thought, just the addition of that, yeah.
I love this, the engine sound that it makes, the hyperdrive makes when it doesn't engage.
The look between Chewie and Leia there.
Right. Yeah,
the hyperdrive failing sound. Yeah. I loved hearing that again in Solo. Mm-hmm. That was such a wonderful callback, and I got such a big laugh. I think the whole theater got a big laugh out of that moment because it just comes out of left field, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, of course."
Well, and coming up here is one of the they could have. It was a great decision. They could have just left Vader just staring out the window when the Falcon finally goes into hyperspace. But the double take that he does, He's looking out the window. He looks back over his shoulder. He looks back out the window, and it's like, I'm a clunky. You know, he just, you know what I mean? It's,
But again, look here, Leia's flying the Falcon.
And I have
Solo.
underrated favorite moment in here is when Chewie gets frustrated and just hits the Falcon with that tool that he's
Yeah.
using.
He's just like, I'm done with this.
yeah, I think we all know what, you know, G dang it is in Wookiee now, or in Shriwook. Yeah. Yeah, right there. Yeah, that was good.
And it's such a relief, isn't it? Like, I know we talk about this, and we've talked about how for some people this ending is so unsatisfying, but they really wring a lot of tension out of these moments. And for them to get away, it's.
But their strategy makes no sense. Why are you flying so close to the Star Destroyer?
I think it's because the Millennium Falcon, the TIE fighters are kind of shepherding them that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
They're trying to guide them to line up for the tractor beam. No, I love this. I love that little moment where kind of Luke just sinks into the seat, because it's almost like that element of, you know, he thought he was cool. He left home to go on a hero's journey, and instead it's he went and found the worst spot.
This isn't heaven. This sucks.
Exactly. You know, it's like all the kids who go to war thinking, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go be a great hero," and no, this is gonna leave scars.
There we go.
Here comes the double take. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
oh well.
What? I should kill you. Wait, what? Dang it! And then of course you got when he leaves the deck,
this guy didn't look back.
The guard who's looking at his data pad and then looks over his shoulder.
It's like, oh crap! Okay, I'm alive.
So, you know, I thought this was kind of a fun thing to do, you know, to 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. Man, a lot of things still just really stand up. Storytelling is great. The cinematography is great. You know, the effects, you know, are really strong, except for Lando's wearing Han's clothes.
I love the fact there was a meme that was going around. It's like Lando would just button up the top buttons on his shirt to get a medal, and then here's Lando wearing his clothes. So I didn't sink in on me until now. Recently, I was like, yeah, that's right. He's wearing Han's clothes. What the heck?
Man, who's having the cops called on him? Man.
Welcome to Uptown New Orleans. No, I like this moment at the end. The part that I found sort of puzzling was it didn't match up with the beginning of Jedi, because you've got Han. Well, you've got Lando and Chewie going off on this mission, and then I guess they separated at some point, and it was just Lando. But you know, it was always sort of weird for me.
That's why it's not canon, but I would recommend reading Shadows of the Empire, because they do a good. It's kind of a fun story of explaining that gap. And I have the book here if either one of you want to borrow it. But it is just, like I said, kind of a fun story that question gets answered really kind of nicely. So
yeah, because it's interesting because that's one of those things that we almost took for granted for the sequels. There's gaps between the movies. There's a gap between A New Hope and this, and there's a gap between this movie and Jedi. And you're able to put stuff like Shadows of the Empire to kind of fill it in. With the adventures and all the other stuff. Because if the idea is, okay, Boba Fett's bringing Han back to Jabba, well, where's Jabba? Oh, he lives on Tatooine. So it's that, there you go. That's all you needed to do. But there's other stuff that's happening. So as we close out.
So any final thoughts about Empire?
It still remains my favorite, I think. way to be committed there, Fredo. No. It is. I just
I,
it's such a well done movie, and I think so much of it is because it makes the bold decision to not repeat what made A New Hope great, but to kind of do something new. They would
I
have
would
been easy just to go, okay, we'll give you Star Wars 2. They didn't.
I would say I think one of the things that makes it as strong is that they actually got a decent director, not somebody to be a director, but a decent director. George Lucas, I've said it before, George Lucas is a great storyteller and he's got a great imagination. He's got wonderful, but as a director of actors, he's not good. As a director of a movie, he has a vision, but the technical aspect of a director, I don't think he's a very good director. J.J. Abrams is a good director, but he's kind of the Stephen King of directors. He's formulaic, right? But Irvin Kershner was really, I think Ryan Johnson is the only one who is really actually, even that kind of ranks up there with getting more out of the actors and of telling an interesting story. So how do you like that? I've said good things about The Last Jedi, Dave.
Oh, you're not a Last Jedi hater at
No.
all. Yeah, so for me, this movie I kind of loop back to what Fredo was saying, which is just like it's such a departure from the first movie, and that was a good thing. It had to be that way, or else, like you said, if you tried to make Star Wars 2 Electric Boogaloo, everybody's just gonna. I think this series doesn't become what it becomes,
Yeah.
and I have nits to pick with this movie as I do with all of them. I don't think any of the films are above criticism, but in the end of the day, I'm so glad that it took the direction that it did, and I'm very thankful for it. And obviously, we talk about Star Wars being this cultural touchstone. This movie kept that up. Just the twist at the end was enough to. When we talk about this becoming more episodic in nature and more serialized, and the twist at the end, oh my gosh, did you guys see what happened and where are they going to take it next? And it became kind of an obsession for people. I mean, it already was, but they made themselves relevant going forward with this movie. And, there were a lot of very smart people involved in making it happen.
Well, hey, cool. Well, thanks for hanging with us this little longer episode, but it was a good direction. It was fun, good conversation.
But until then, we'll just say who dat, who dat,
Who dat?
and so take her easy.
McConkey.